We finally got another glimpse at Metro 2039, and this time with a nice chunk of gameplay to see what this is all looking like, because as cool as a pre-rendered story-driven trailer is, we always want to know what we are going to get, and in my opinion, Metro 2039 is looking absolutely beautiful. It's Wolfenstein inspired absolutely, but I'm all for it. As long as those tunnels are dark and claustrophobic and we get a nice mix of action, horror, stealth and story, then it's a win for me. But with the trailer being literally labelled as simply Hunter, I thought that brings more to the debate about who this main protagonist is and what this story will all be about. So in today's episode, we will be discussing the Hunter theory from the first trailer and then exploring the new one to see what more it adds to this overall theory. So let's grab our new Shatoon weapon, fix our breach charge and blow our way into the Hunter theory of Metro 2039. We will start by looking back at the first trailer and exploring those key moments in it that looked at who this new protagonist is. So to start, for those who have never explored Metro before, Hunter was a crucial figure in Artyom's life early on, Artyom being the original protagonist from the first 3 games. And within the first game was almost his mentor when joining the station guard, and eventually gave him the motivation to venture into Polis and become a Spartan Ranger like him. Hunter was seen as the best Spartan Ranger, was said to be built like a bear, and was given permission to venture to the surface on his own with heavy gear. No other Ranger at the time was trusted with that mission. He was also one of the first to witness the Dark Ones and see what they were truly capable of, and because of that, was the one to make it his goal to seek out where they came from and shut them down, asking Artyom to take up his mantle if he were to not return. During 2033, we don't really know where he went. Once he disappeared into the tunnels, that was it, but he did appear again to Artyom multiple times in somewhat visions, leaving us with the question, is he still alive? Or is this in Artyom's head? Or furthermore, is this a message from Hunter from a place like the River of Fate? There's also another theory that Hunter was also the only other human to be reached out by the Dark Ones, and that is how he was able to communicate to Artyom in those ethereal moments. Regardless, Artyom was able to shut down the Dark Ones in 2033, and with that, Hunter fully disappeared in the game. The Book of 2034 is the thing that explores his story further, as it goes on to show how the Dark Ones mentally affected him and changed him as a person. But whether this is officially canon to the game timeline is pretty unknown, but it seems like this is the story that is the focus of 2039. Moving into the first trailer, our first display of the stranger comes from out in the wilderness. He has no gas mask and he looks genuinely terrified of something. This comes after endless talk of wake up in his head, almost as if he is in a daze and has finally come back to reality, or he's been witnessing other things and coming back to the real world has caught him breathless. It's here where we see that he is a Spartan, and not a new one, but an old Spartan as well, showing that he is one with probably a lot of experience, which matches Hunter's age and also experience as well. He also keeps seeing children and almost spiritual moments with the constant wake up playing either from a speaker or from the ghostly children. It almost feels like those creepy Dark Ones moments with Artyom, and clearly showing that he is unstable, which is what the book 2034 showed with Hunter, as he was really not there at all during his journey. We also know that Artyom had endless dreams or nightmares about what was going to happen in the future. We saw that in the trailer for Exodus, and all of those areas actually existed. Maybe this was a message from the Dark Ones, and if so, the stranger, if it is Hunter, is experiencing those same visions of what the world's going to look like due to the actions of either him or someone wanted to either be him or use his legend status to get the following of the people of the Metro. After tons of chasing after captured children trying to save them with wake up constantly ringing out, the trailer dived into a really dark part of the Metro with the burning house in the background and a creepy lady with chains attached to her and a bright light silhouetting her. Not only that, but the speaker continues to talk, stating the line, "Fear not the enemy threats, for Fuhrer Hunter protects you." The stranger then asks, "Can you hear me?" Which the lady then replies, "They do, everything, but you don't let them speak." These two quotes were so significant for me because, as we see later, the Dark Ones are directly behind her, but Hunter can't see them. These quotes both seem to be trying to say that this character is trying to be reached out by the Dark Ones. They've always been trying to talk to him, like they had with Artyom, but he has been blinded into thinking that they are there to kill him or take over the metro. Even the speaker, which is almost like a self-conscious of Hunter, seems to be saying, don't fear them, they are on your side, but Fuhrer Hunter is the one holding him back, trying to protect him from seeing the true horrors of what he did to them and in his war against them. It's a bit of a stretch, but this scene is so significant, especially when he goes on to say, it's not about me, and she replies, it's all about you. This quote is also vital, especially linked with the new trailer, which we will explore in a minute. But for me, it's saying that everything going on now at this point in time is due to him and his actions. The children's deaths, the Nova Reich, the house being burnt, all of this is down to Hunter's actions, and he keeps pushing it aside to protect him from completely breaking down and realizing what he has ultimately done. Moving forward, we see the uniformed Nova Reich children all quoting, either we destroy or we are destroyed. A very familiar quote, as Hunter used to say, if it's hostile, kill it. It's a similar mindset and seems very fitting for what his overall goal of taking on the Dark Ones was. It's still unclear what the Nova Reich's ultimate goal is, even in the new trailer, but it seems quite clear for me that the Fuhrer is fearful of being destroyed by something, and that is why they have been set up. However, interestingly, this is also where we witness the Dark Ones for the first time, who state the same quote, which, like with the bit with the lady, seems like it is them talking the whole time. But the stranger is actually believing it's the other way around. The Dark Ones also look dramatically different here, and I think that is a clear sign that we are witnessing it from Hunter's perspective. They look almost human. They have something that looks like a gas mask on their face, and in 2033 it was deemed that they were to be the next stage in human evolution, so maybe that is what Hunter sees them as being. That, or they are taking on the look of Hunter's image with the gas mask to show that once again, all of this is down to his actions. Even the Dark Ones and their goals now are because of him, and their image being him is just symbolism. One other theory I have for if these aren't Dark Ones, I honestly do think they are Dark Ones, but if they're not, they could be a creature from the 2034 book called the Nagonea Phantoms, who were only seen within the metro station of Nagonea, but were usually surrounded by white fog of an unknown origin. They are said to be like the Dark Ones, with human origins, but are incredibly deadly, and no one knows what they are capable of. Hunter experiences the fog within the 2034 novel as he loses a young soldier from the group as he is silently grabbed. That said, the Dark Ones are more likely, as that seems to make sense for the overall story, especially with them being seen in the second trailer as well. However, the fact that there's a lot of white fog here in this scene and they look a little different than before, it could be that they are the Nagonea Phantoms, and if so, that's a nice little reference to 2034, but that's just me sort of making things up at this point. Regardless of what they are, probably Dark Ones, clearly the stranger is traumatized by these creatures, so much so that he breaks from their control and just fires without thought, ultimately leading to him killing a ton of children, which seems to absolutely destroy his mindset. I think this whole bit is extremely symbolic for the character's story. It shows that whatever these creatures were, they took over everything within him. He did not check what he was firing at. He did not think logically. His fear and anger took over, and that led to the deaths of innocents, most likely this whole village as well, which really leads me to believe that this is Hunter and this was his complete descent into madness. In the 2034 book, Hunter massacres innocent civilians in front of his companions simply because the Dark Ones have destroyed him, and now he has a bloodlust for violence. This is an extremely similar vibe and is terrifying that he is capable of doing such things, maybe pushing it aside in his own mind, saying it is only a dream, or it was the Dark Ones who made him do it, and that has led him to forming his own faction to finally fight them back once again and do everything to finally wipe them off the face of the earth. But at the same time, his conscious, as well as the Dark Ones themselves, are trying to bring him back to reality, to see what he has truly done, and to try and change his ways to fight off the demon that he has become. If only he could wake up and listen to those reaching out to him, which leads us into the second trailer. The whole narration of this trailer is a massive talking point for me because whilst yes, there's been many monologues about antagonists before telling us, the audience, why they are bad, this one in 2039 almost feels like a diary entry, similar to the way that Artyom used to write about past events. It sounds like someone who is so closely connected to this individual that they have to get it out there, have to talk about why they need to stop this individual and reconcile about past mistakes. Maybe I'm biased because I am so adamant on this theory that we are playing as Hunter, but it reads as though he is talking about himself in a way, another side of him that he absolutely despises, and that is why he is filled with so much venom. Our Hunter has finally realized what he became, and the only way to end it is by destroying the other side of him. But with that said, we open the trailer with a massively significant line stating there's a liar in these tunnels, which could mean one of two things. It could either mean that one, the Fuhrer has taken on the identity of Hunter, taken his credentials, his legendary status to win the people over and have his trust. Simply by being a Spartan Ranger, that would win most people over. To find out it is the legend that is Hunter, the man who could venture up to the surface on his own to help stations with resources and help them win the war against the Dark Ones in 2033, it's a no-brainer that you'd believe he would guide them into a bright and bold future. That, or the meaning of liar, is meant for himself, and like I mentioned a minute ago, he is lying about who he is as a person. Hunter believed that everything he did was for the greater good. He has convinced himself that everything he has done is to help humanity. The war against the Dark Ones was a good thing. They were enemies. They were not there to help anyone or be friendly. Everything Hunter believes is a lie, and he's convinced himself to save himself mentally. All throughout the first trailer, we see that he is being told to wake up and see what is truly going on. And so when the narration comes on and says there is a liar in these tunnels, it is talking about this false reality he has created for himself, and that is the thing that needs to be shut down. But before we dive more into the words and images, we get a shot here of a watery part of the metro, which just on the surface looks like a nice piece of environment which the team wanted to show off. But I couldn't help thinking of the River of Fate when I saw this part. Back in Last Light, this place was a really significant part for Artyom's journey. Together with Khan, this paranormal part of the metro enabled Artyom to have that epiphany moment where he witnesses the truth behind the Dark Ones, that they aren't the enemy at all. They just wanted to reach out to humanity and live together with them, and the baby Dark One they were chasing was the one to help bridge the gap before it was too late. Showing this water area could just be a coincidence, but could it also be the place where Hunter finally realizes the truth behind everything he had done? The place that made him realize the Nova Reich and the war on the Dark Ones is all wrong, and upon this realization it should be the other way around, and that is why he is now on a warpath to shut down what he could have created with the Nova Reich. It could also have led to the real Hunter leaving the Nova Reich completely and going out into the world to find himself, and someone else took up his mantle pretending to be him, and the only way to shut down this world, this vicious world that is of his making, is by destroying this liar. If that's true, then the quote of "there's a liar in these tunnels" works both ways, and could explain how we are actually going to stop a Fuhrer, unless it's genuinely going to be a Fight Club, Tyler Durden, Bioshock Infinite Comstock moment. It could also explain why this new Fuhrer has a prosthetic arm made of gold, or at least his hand is gold anyway. Maybe this individual was one who lost a lot from the Spartans in the Dark Ones war or events after, and with Hunter out of the question now due to a mental breakdown or something, has taken the glory for himself, molded the Nova Reich into something new, even more brutal, and has gone against what Hunter wanted to begin with. It could explain the next quote, which states, "You stood for something," and shows a man preaching with the Nova Reich banner in front of people in a bar. Maybe back when Hunter was living in his station after the events of Artyom's escape, Hunter wanted to change the metro for the better and founded the Nova Reich for good, but now it's been molded into something new by an imposter using his image to justify his actions. It's a lot of speculation here and some theories that completely go against the other, but I just wanted to throw around some ideas for what could be happening during these moments, because it is interesting that our stranger has both working arms but the Fuhrer does not, so it could mean a few things. Either one, it is genuinely a heavily scarred and evil Hunter who is the Fuhrer and needs to be stopped by whoever this stranger is, could be Artyom's uncle Sukhoi perhaps, or it could be that someone has taken over as Fuhrer using Hunter's name for clout, either with the actual Hunter disappearing during the setup, or believing that he was gone from the metro for good before the Nova Reich ever began, or Hunter is the Fuhrer. He just doesn't know it as of yet, and his brain is playing some insane mental gymnastics to hide it from him. But anyway, moving on, we see a shot of 2 gas masks hanging up in what looks like a small bedroom with the lines, "You were a legend." I thought this shot was interesting, and maybe I'm really reaching here, but 2 different looking gas masks on a line that is speaking in the past tense could symbolize 2 different sides of the same thing. If the Novorike are in power, then technically Hunter is a legend still, but maybe in his eyes, the eyes of the narrator, that man has changed and is not the same as before. It might not be anything at all and I'm just overlooking a shot, but having 2 gas masks hanging up for me seems very symbolic of 2 sides of the same coin. Also, is the stranger's gas mask that is shown. This is clear because it has the writing on the side of it, which is Latin for "If it's hostile, kill it." You know, Hunter's quote that we spoke about a minute ago. This cannot just be a random other person's mask. This has to be the stranger's, and with the whole quote of "You were a legend" playing over the top, that must mean that this is Hunter's helmet, which either means the stranger absolutely is Hunter, or it could be that he absolutely idolized him and used his quote in his day-to-day, as well as believing everything Hunter stood for was correct. We then get a crucial piece of information that all of the Spartans are now gone, with the dead body of one of them being shown, but interestingly outside of the metro in what looks like a cave system, and quickly after it we see a whole village on the surface being burnt down. Could this mean that they were hunted down after Artyom's escape and all of their hideouts were eradicated as well? This certainly would help the theory that the Fuhrer is an imposter, because if he wiped out all of the Spartans, who would be able to cry out that he isn't the real Hunter? He would go completely unopposed, and his status of legendary Spartan would grow even bigger because he was the only one left surviving in the metro. We then see the true power of the Novorike in Moscow, as they have factories, prison camps, and tons of lookout posts on the surface, with dead littered everywhere as a warning, and banners ever present as well. This is interesting because this is where the tone of the narration switches up and becomes so much more personal and heated. It goes from being about saving and helping the people of the metro to talking about succumbing to darkness, almost as if he is talking just in general about Hunter's descent into madness after the Dark Ones. He talks about how it overwhelms him and how it is spreading like a plague, which I personally thought was a nice little reference to the 2034 book, as Hunter is sent out on a mission to deal with a plague outbreak in one of the stations. I'm not sure if that's just a coincidence, but I thought it was quite a nice reference, and it seems like the character goes to a very old part of the metro that has been victim of something like the plague or heavy radiation, as we see him being attacked by a ton of mutant humans. Maybe this is a link to the book and he's venturing back to those stations that were destroyed in the fire that was of his making, and maybe it's here where he comes to that realization of who he has become. It certainly seems fitting to show all of these dark and extremely hostile places during this segment of the narration when he's talking about being dragged down into more lies and darkness. We also see a ton of water on the ground as well, so once again it makes me wonder if this has anything to do with the River of Fate, and that is what he is seeking out at this point in time. I'll also have a quick breakaway to state I think the gameplay looks really good. It's got really close quarters combat, the guns sound impactful, and the outside stuff looks like there are a lot of different ways to approach situations, so it should bring about some good moments when playing. But there's also an interesting thing about the combat which ties to this whole theory about us being Hunter, and that comes from the brand new gun, which seems to be an insanely fast SMG named the Shatoon. Obviously, a name can just sound cool, but I found it very interesting the decision to name it this, simply because the Russian translation for Shatoon to English can stand for a couple of things. The first one means roamer or wanderer, which is quite fitting of our main character, but it also refers to a bear that fails to hibernate and wanders dangerously through the winter. I find this incredibly interesting because Hunter was considered like a bear in his frame and would also wander on his own up on the surface whilst everyone else stayed down in the metro. It feels almost perfectly fitting for him, this gun, and that name cannot be a coincidence. And finally, it can also refer to a mechanical connecting rod, and yes, that is a big reach, but doesn't that sound extremely similar to what this whole story seems to be doing? It's connecting the pieces. Yes, it's just a gun's name, but damn, the choice of word is very, very coincidental and must have been thought about to some extent. And finally, we get to the end of the trailer and the quote, "That legendary Spartan is gone, turned to ash. I won't stop until the Fuhrer burns with him. And this is shown over gameplay and the same shot of the Fuhrer playing over and over again, which I quickly want to note shows up when he wipes his gas mask of blood at first and then seems to show up the more lives he takes. Maybe the bloodshed is a reflection of the Fuhrer in him or something. It just seems like another purposeful shot to put in, especially the one where he is wiping blood off the gas mask and it goes straight to the Fuhrer. This quote is interesting to me because Hunter is not named at all. Only the legendary Spartan. Maybe this is just for dramatic effect, but it does seem to be phrased in a specific way to make it seem like Hunter is still there, but everything he once was and has become now has to die for him to become that better person or to make up for his past crimes. With that said, there's a lot of talk about fire within this trailer and visible in the last trailer as well, and surely this has to all link closely to the event with the children, and I think that is the catalyst to all that has happened now. I wish I knew what was going on here, but maybe it's yet again another link to what happened with Hunter's story in 2034, and that's what's happened here at some point during his life after 2033. Essentially in 2034, he goes on to burn down a whole station due to the outbreak of a plague and killed thousands of people with it. So maybe something similar happens here, and it was due to his mental breakdown caused by the Dark Ones. But after all of that, we get a final glimpse into the metro. Here the screen glitches to a metro train with paranormal noises going on and a flickering light, which reminds me a lot of the events with Artyom during his time with Khan, as well as Ullman when they go to Polyanka. It certainly seems like this game is going to have a real focus on the paranormal, and it's going to be so much more than with Exodus thanks to the presence of the Dark Ones, which we once again see at the end of this trailer, covered in flames once again, holding its arm out, I guess to try and communicate with our character once again. We also hear a very quiet voice. First, it's a man which sounds like our main narrator saying, "Wake up," once again. It then changes to a younger voice saying, "Wake up," then a really quiet word after, which sounds like, "Wake up, Hunter." I think it's fair to say that there is enough evidence within this trailer and the last that the protagonist must be Hunter. It's the Fuhrer who is the more confusing part to all of this, but I'm starting to lean into the belief that the Fuhrer Hunter isn't actually Hunter at all, but is in fact someone who believed he was dead, wiped out the Spartans who might threaten him, and took over as leader for this new faction, and that is what brought the true Hunter back. However, upon returning has started to face those very same things that drove him mad in the first place, and that is thanks to the Dark Ones returning once again. Maybe it's the same Dark One that left Artyom back in Last Light, or maybe this is a new group who have other ambitions. But regardless, I'm pretty certain that we will be playing as Hunter, and we will witness his mental struggles, all thanks to his past actions, or the actions of this new Fuhrer. But that's the trailer. There's probably some other bits within it that I missed, so let me know what you noticed, and also let me know what you think in the comments below, or if you have any theories about what is going on. Big thanks for checking out this episode. I got more Metro coming closer to the game's release, and also when we see more about the game. But for now, I want to say a big thanks to my patrons, including my small fishes, my big fish Anthony Bonfiglio, my YouTube channel Wise1, Sith Lord 906, Video Game Player 7555, the Nanotarium, and Amanda Berlin, my sharks Dan F, Lorena R, and Hazy Thoughts, and my Megalodon Sinus. But that is all for now. Thanks again for checking out the channel, and I shall see you all in the next one. Cheers.